okay, my friends recommended these 3 people. We then jump on Google and we go, all right, or we go to Facebook, or we go somewhere and go, who's remotely legit here? Welcome back to Life at 10 Tenths, where we inspire you to live at the pinnacle of your ability and purpose. My name is Garrett Fry. I'm here with my great friend Matt Benelli, and all of you, you're here with us too, and we are grateful to have you with us today. We are going to try to debunk some stuff, or at least set you free from just the baggage and crap that we hand around with us going, I'm going to be okay. And I'm okay because I now know the numbers of where I stand in the world as a realtor today. And I'm either part of the upper percent and I'm crushing it, or it's okay because I'm part of the mediocre rest of the pack. And we need to, sorry, that came out wrong. I'm a little spicy today. But we're going to set you free from some data that people are hanging on to a little too tough, a little too strong. Matt, good morning, sir.
Good morning. Yeah, I'm excited to talk about this because this is data that only realtors care about. Like, I don't think anybody else really cares about this. And the people who certain people think should care about it really don't care about it. Yeah. and it creates confusion. And I understand that. And there is kind of that's a really unfortunate stat component to all of this as well, which maybe emphasizes kind of a little conspiracy theory that hangs in the back of my head that I don't think we'll talk about today, but I just want to share that in case we do talk about it at some point.
And just be like, well, we might touch on that. Keep going, Matt. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's only theory if it isn't true. Right. So yeah, man, let's just dive into this. So this headline here, Inman News posted this last week at the time of us recording this, which said that 71% of real estate agents didn't close any deals in 2024. And Jared James had posted a similar stat saying 74% of realtors, now notice the difference in terms here, realtors didn't close any deals in 2024, which left a lot of people going, oh my gosh, that's crazy, which honestly is not super surprising to me, just based on one, how licensing work and realtor membership works, Garrett. But then people started looking into well, how many people are actually doing the most of the deals, right? How many people are doing, 10, 15, 20 deals a year? Where is that at? And you start to get into the 2% and then the points of percentages as you get there. And there's more to the story than just those numbers, Garrett.
There's always more to the story, Matt. And so let's just start off really quick with data and stats that blindly get shared. And this whole 70 some odd percent didn't do a transaction. This started back in December. People started talking about it.
Yeah, we were talking about it. We had heard it was like 49% hadn't closed anything. And so we had talked about that at one point on one of our coaching sessions. And we kind of were just like, who cares? And here we are.
It's funny. I heard the 49 and then somebody had shared the 70. And I was like, well, wait, what is the number? What are we talking about here? Are we just what is the right number? And now we're getting a little bit farther down the road and people are locking on to this 70% number and going this is where we're at. And the interesting thing about it is anytime you're ever given a stat like that, you have to ask, what was it years before? What was 2023, 2022, 2021, 2020? Let's go back to 2019, 2018, 2017. Let's know, how many realtors out there actually do a transaction a year? How many actually don't? And find that out before you start going, what? 70? No. We need to know those stats. And I think it's fascinating that we can do this all. When I'm working with a real estate agent, Matt, and they're like, well, I'm going to share the number of how many listings are currently on the market right now, active listings. And they go, oh, this is a strong number. There's 3,000 active listings right now. And we all go, man, that's a lot of homes. That seems like a lot. Is it?
I don't know.
Do we usually operate at 20,000? Do we usually operate at 10,000? Do we usually operate at 1,000 homes that are currently active? Like, you have to have more data. And we are sometimes, I watch a lot of people out here right now that grab a piece of data and they run with it. They don't ask any more questions. And it's really important that we stop first before anything and go, what does this data actually mean? Before we share it, before we lose sleep over it, before we get pissed off about it, like, what does it mean? Let's figure that out first. And that's something I don't see enough people doing right now, with especially this number that's just being shared blindly out here right now.
Well, and the real downside I see to it is people share it saying, this is the problem with our industry. We need higher standards. We need this and all this stuff because it's the people who aren't doing any deals who are bringing us down. And I was like, well, but if they're not doing anything, then they aren't doing anything. Because I mean, and let's just look into it logically, right? There are a lot of people who have an active real estate license and who are members of the National Association of Realtors, thus realtors, who don't do deals because their certain role in the industry doesn't involve doing deals. I am one of those people.
I was going to say, Matt, raise your hand.
Owners of brokerages are often those people. Managers who don't sell. I used to be a non-selling manager. What about also there's teams that have members that don't take credit for deals because everything goes to the team lead and they're basically an employee in the team, which is awesome, by the way. There's nothing wrong with that. And those people aren't getting counted, even though they're out there doing a really great job too. So, there's a lot also when you look behind it of like, okay, there are maybe a 30% of realtors who are registering, and by the way, that all this data comes from surveys. So it's not like they were actually able to go pull, which fascinating. Like if there's a lot of control and access into all the MLSs and everything, you think they would be able to do a big data study on this instead of sampling, 5, 6, 10,000 realtors at a time to get these stats and then just say, well, that must mean that's what it is for the 1.5 million of them out there.
The one that showed up at the conference so we could actually pull them in the back of the room and be like, hey, how are your numbers this year?
Yeah. And I understand how polling works and stats. Like I get it. People are like, well, you don't, and I'm like, yes, no, I totally understand. And it makes sense. But to then say that these non-transacting realtors are negatively impacting the industry and then also deducting that, gosh, consumers out there, they have like basically this overwhelming majority of a chance of choosing an agent that doesn't know what they're doing. It's like, no, it's not like you just go and be like, I'm just going to go ask for an agent and one of the 1.5 million is going to show up. Garrett, we have the data again from a survey from the NAR that shows that people don't find their agent that way.
So it's funny. We need to go back in time a little bit, and I want to hit on two things. One is that I've known a lot of people in my lifetime that have a real estate license, and if you ask them like, "Oh, are you active?" No, I have it just in case I have a friend that wants to do a transaction, or like, we every once in a while we'll buy or sell a house, and I can just go and represent ourselves, and we save on the commission and all that stuff, so like it works for us. Or hey, we do a lot of investments, and it just makes it easy, so we're not paying the commissions all the time. Yeah. Like, I know people like that. They exist. They are part of the realtor population out there, and they have their license, and they just they're the silent majority of realtors out there that nobody quite kind of knows about, just kind of moving around.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. Next, as we go and pick a real estate agent, I don't know anybody that does anything absolutely blind in today's world right now. It doesn't exist. We have too much information at our fingertips. Nobody is walking in. We have to go back, let's say, to the early 90s. Let's go back to the 80s just for fun. You wanted a realtor. You drove down the street. You might pick up the phone call, but most likely you would walk into a real estate office, one that you might have heard good things about, and you were like, I would like to talk to a realtor. And they would be like, oh, well, we'll get one for you. And they would find the one sitting at the table close to the office there, hammering the phones, taking all the leads that are coming in as people are calling one to buy or sell a house. And you might get handed off potentially to a new realtor, potentially maybe to somebody that did not do a real estate transaction that year, because all the actual ones that are actually doing a lot of the transactions weren't probably getting a lot of their business from there, give or take. So it's like you automatically were deducted down to the person that may not be doing a ton of real estate transactions, which might give you an interesting opinion about the level of credibility that some realtors have and why maybe you didn't have the experience you thought you were going to have. We're talking way back. Nowadays, very easy. We can phone a friend very fast and say, who is your realtor? Who is your realtor? We don't even have to do that, Matt. We can text them. We can text a whole bunch of friends in a second and be like, who did you use? Who did you use? Who did you use? Who would you recommend in town? And boom, 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 we got all that. And then the minute we know, okay, my friends recommended these 3 people, we then jump on Google and we go, all right, or we go to Facebook or we go somewhere and go, who's remotely legit here? I trust all my friends, but let's get a little bit more data. And we grab a little bit more data. And then after that, we go, you know what? I feel like I'm going with this person. Well, why am I picking them? I just feel good in my gut. It just feels right. Well, why did you even get to that point? Well, John said they were good. Sam said they were good. And now we've got,
proof.
Google and Facebook to back them all up. I feel good about this. And you wonder why the relationship business went through the roof in the last year. We wonder why and by the way, it's not really went through the roof. It's the way it's been going for a tremendous amount of time. Matt, when you look at the profile of home buyers and sellers, most people found their realtor through a relationship with a friend or someone they trusted.
Oh, it's outrageously overwhelming. And hey, what do you know? We have the stats right here, so we can actually go look at them. On the buyer side, right, 40% of buyers found their agent because they were already connected to them. They were a friend, they were a relative, or a neighbor, or they were referred by one of those people, right? Another 17% just used an agent that they had used prior. Okay, great. So we're already over 50%. Another 7% were referred by another real estate agent or broker, right? So we're now over 60% of people 60% of buyers found their agent through a personal connection, right? Now the seller side, very similar. 38% were directly tied to or referred from a friend. 28% used the agent that they previously used, and another 4% were referred by a realtor. So outrageously overwhelming majority find their realtor through a relationship.
Well, and I had brought this up to the table. We might have done a podcast back when we were in a different world. We were talking about back in 2023 going into 2024, Matt, we talked about how we were going to watch the flow of transactions not be given out equally.
Yeah.
And we talked about a low tide and a high tide. And really where we've been like last year was a low tide scenario, which is very few or much lower amount of transactions actually pass through the pipeline. And we started watching a lot of people go, oh my gosh, because there's less transactions going through, we're all going to have to accept the fate of we're going to do less transactions. And what I started saying is no, this is not how it's going to happen. What we're going to watch is we're going to watch these transactions, less of them, pool up in this weird way. And I started talking about like a wave. We're going to see this wave start to form where everybody over here that would have just maybe ran around and found their realtor by dumb luck, they started turning to their friends more because there was some uncertainty out there. There was some kind of like, what's happening with our world? What's going on right now? What's happening with inflation? What's happening with interest rates? What's going on with all this? I need somebody I trust. And we watched this relationship spike up where people leaned into their friends. I saw referrals take off during that time. And it's why we saw some people and we're going to interview some people. We've got some people coming up that crushed 2024.
Yeah.
They weren't part of the group that sat around going like, where's a deal happening right now? They had the best years they've ever had in this business, and they've been realtors for a long time. And if you look at it, they've had a long-term relationship building plan going on. They haven't deviated from it. They haven't gone like, oh, I'm going to dabble in all this other stuff over here because I need to find some new business. They lean back into their relationships really strong. And what do you know? There's people that needed help. Amazing.
Oh my gosh, who knew? I will say I've seen as the business plans have come in and looking at the stats that people have reported on their year, a big rise in the referral category of people. And we're talking real referrals, not repeat business or direct business from people. These are referrals where a friend or a client had referred a new person to these realtors. And I've seen
This
that
month,
go up a lot, Garrett.
this month, so when everybody's listening to this, it'll be February. We're sitting right now recording this in January right now. I've had a lot of people that I'm like, tell me about your business that you have in your pipeline right now. What are you looking at? And so when I'm coaching them, I'll have them break it down. They'll kind of throw business at me, depending on where we're at in coaching them. And I'll ask them, how much of that is repeat, people coming back to you or friends you know, and how much of it is honest to goodness referrals? Somebody passed a name along to you, said, hey, I want you to help out Matt Benelli. He's a good friend of mine. Give him a call. I am seeing the craziest, highest numbers right now where I have to like ask more questions. I'm like, wait. Okay, no, I want to know what's real, honest to goodness referrals. And the more I start like kind of like digging into it and pulling the information, I'm like, oh my gosh, these are actual real referrals. Like you have that many people that are sharing your name and passing your name along and raving about you out there, higher than I've ever seen right now. Never seen the numbers like this.
Oh yeah.
And I don't have stats for you guys. I'm sorry. I don't have a way of going like, oh, percentage from here to here. It's 20 years of experience of mine of grilling agents about where their business really comes from. And this month, me going like, no, you're reading the data wrong. I want you to read it this way. And after me asking 5 times, I'm like, oh, I'm not listening to them. Like they actually have that many referrals.
And the sample size would be too small for it to be statistically relevant, which is actually a good point because I've seen people look at this and actually be like, oh, wow, like I'm actually doing really well. And okay, cool. Based on that stat, yeah. How do you feel? Because that's really what matters. It doesn't matter how you compare yourself. And I did see someone comment on a post saying, I feel good doing like 1 transaction a month. I don't need to be one of the agents doing 30 deals a year. And so it really comes down to what's working for you and how are you serving your people? Because I think there is this, and now I get it from the concept of the more business you do, the more you learn, the more you grow, theoretically, the better you are at what you do. That said, I've seen people who have 30 years of experience have a first year 30 times over again. Right. Yep. Versus someone who's grown and they're doing a certain number of deals. So longevity and deal count doesn't necessarily automatically mean that you're good at what you do and that you're good personally, because interesting stats here too, from the NAR on their profile of members, their membership profile, only 32% of realtor members make more than 100,000 a year, which, if we apply Pareto's principle to everything, it just seems to always pop up in some fashion because 20% of them are earning 150,000 or more. And people are like, okay, well, that's a lot of money. Sure. Well, there's 21% that are earning less than 10,000. Now, a lot of those people are new agents. So that makes sense, according to their survey. And I think this survey actually really was interviewing agents that are active in the business versus people like me, we'll just say, but you look at these numbers and you're like, okay, it's all over the map, and everybody is all over the map too, because what works for an agent in New York City is different than what works for an agent in Topeka, Kansas, right? Which is different than works for an agent in Denver, Colorado, Redding, California, Charleston, South Carolina. And so when you're looking at these numbers, I want people to be cautious of, stick to what you want to do. Because if you are in the top 1% or top 2%, awesome, cheers to you. But do you feel good about that? Like, are you happy with it? Or is there something else that you want to achieve that now this is just going to become a distraction for you? And I wouldn't use this stat as like, hey, come do business with me because I'm a top 2% agent, because the consumers really don't care. They just don't care, Garrett.
Well, and I mean, at the end of the day, I do think there's value in processing a lot of volume of real estate. Like you having your hands in deals. If I was to go pick a real estate agent right now out of the realtors that I know, one of the things that I would be looking at as a stat is somebody that is doing deals. I want to know that you're out there, you're seeing what's going on, you're negotiating deals right now. You know the struggles of what you had to negotiate on last week and what we're probably going to run into right now. Where if you're doing a real estate transaction once a month, once every 2 months, you don't realize that all of a sudden we're in a multiple offer bidding, war with a lot of properties right now because you haven't been doing it every day. And yeah, you potentially could put me in a position where I'm going to lose a property that I want because I just wasn't educated properly because you're not out there active enough in it. There's power in that, but it's one of those things, as we talked about up front, Matt. Most people are not blindly picking real estate agents. They're going to go ask questions. They're going to go learn, and they're going to take their own risk that they're comfortable with of saying, you know what, Matt doesn't do real estate transactions every day, but you know what? He can help us. And I really like the guy, and I feel like he's going to do right by us. And hey, Matt, can you help me with a real estate transaction down in Charleston? Because we're thinking about buying a property down there. And if I called you and said, could you help me? There's a chance you might go be like, dude, like, come on down. Let's go look at some houses.
If it's you, I'd be like, dude, let's rock and roll for sure.
Let's go do it. Let's go have some fun. And so it's like, is that a downside, or am I taking an educated risk as a consumer? And I think we do this every single day. We do this with restaurants we eat at, where it's like, man, they don't have a lot of really good reviews, but John says they're the place we should go to, and you take an educated risk whether we're gonna eat there or not, and whether we're gonna have food poisoning or we're gonna be like, man, those tacos were killer. Like, well, not too killer. Like, depends on the level of food poisoning.
Yes. Well, I guess if you're talking about it, they weren't.
Exactly.
We lived to see another day.
They were worth it. So I think it's not just dumb luck of how we find people out here right now. And there's way too much information, as we talked about. But Matt, as we were getting ready to kind of record here, and we talk about relationships.
Yeah.
And how we build relationships. And relationships can be built in a ton of ways. And you brought up Ryan Serhant.
Yeah.
And I love that you brought this up because I don't know Ryan. I feel like I do in a weird way. Like, I feel like I understand his energy and his tempo and like what I can expect from him. And there's a weird thing that if I was to walk into a building, I would go, that's Ryan. Like, whoa, like this, that's Ryan. There's a weird level of comfort and understanding. And we can build that whether we're building a relationship one-on-one where we're going and having lunch with somebody every single month and hanging out and talking about their kids and building that, that kind of trust level. There's also these relationships that people have built where they show up routinely in our worlds, whether it's the person that is, got a lot of signs in our neighborhood, or it's the person that always is walking their dog and we go, oh, that's the real estate agent that does this stuff. Like, there are lots of ways to build relationships with people. But I thought what you said, which was really interesting, is the ones that are successful showing up like that all the time and being in people's worlds, Ryan Serhant specifically, never says, I can help you buy and sell a house in New York. Come on down. I'm here and I'm waiting for you. Like, you come use me when you're in New York. He has created a relationship style of just giving great information, showing up in our world, being around us, and how we all know who he is. Yeah. I've never heard him ask for business. And I think it's an opportunity for a lot of people to go, one, what is my game plan? What am I trying to build here? And how am I showing up in people's worlds? Am I showing up as a predator trying to find my next transaction? Or am I showing up as what is my long-term relationship business plan here? Because relationships are winning. They've won forever.
Yeah, they have. And I think, I like the Ryan, and you can insert your favorite celebrity realtor into this equation. Because you had mentioned too, there are agents out there that are like, why are my ads not working? Why am I not getting the leads and all that stuff? And it's, if you look at the way a lot of people are looking to grab right now leads, it's very pushy, very like, hey, click here to do this. And you're expecting to just get conversion versus building a long-term relationship by deploying value. And that's what consumers are looking for. They're looking for value all the time. And that value can be in the form of entertainment. And that's obviously one of the reasons why Ryan Serhant has become so popular is he was smart enough to say, I need to do whatever whatever it takes to get on $1 Million Listing, because at the time when he got on that show, and if you hear him talk about it, he wasn't really selling that much real estate. He was grinding out rentals. He was working really hard and wanted to be successful. And he's like, if I can get on TV, people are going to know who I am and my business is going to explode. And it did. Now he has his own TV show. He has his own brokerage, and he's now expanded down here into Charleston, which has got a lot of people all upset, which I find hilarious. And it's like, and it was through a lot of media attention. And now obviously that's a massive scale. You don't have to go to the lengths and the levels of a Ryan Serhant. But when you think about the strategies that you're deploying and you look at this business plan you wrote, does it have a plan of deployment of value to people? And I will even say, like, for those agents that have had the billboard up on the highway for a decade, that is just their picture and are like, hey, call me for your needs. There's some value there because people know billboards are expensive. They're like, gosh, Garrett's had his billboard up on this highway for a decade. He must be doing pretty good.
Well,
right?
There's recognition of name. I mean, we have lenders here in town that there's a couple of them that battle it out. They've got, they're all, but it's funny is like, I know exactly who they are. Like, I see them all over. There are so many lenders in this town, but those are the two names that come to my mind. Like, there is value in that type of stuff and showing up one billboard, one time for 1 month going, okay, let's see if we
work.
like,
well, and it works in tandem
plan
with everything else you do as well. It doesn't, these things don't stand alone. And we're going to talk about money in our coaching session today, which I'm excited about because people will, put these one things by themselves and be like, that thing didn't work. And it's like, well, did you support it with phone calls? Did you support it with real estate reviews? Were you out there engaging your sphere? Were you texting people, right? Were you doing all the other things that it takes to build a relationship?
It's like Matt, it's like somebody that comes to me and says, I want to start a farm. And I'm like, are you into it for 3 years? Like, at least, like, just give 3 years minimum that you are going to give energy to that farm. Or are you talking about like doing a couple mailers out to a neighborhood and being like, okay, I farmed that neighborhood, I'm going to go move on to a different farm. That's how a lot of people will do it. Or they'll jump into it with a big idea of like, oh, in 7 years, this will be my neighbor. I'll do every transaction here. But they only show up so infrequent that's like, you're never building the long-term game plan. This isn't going to turn into anything at the end of the day, just so we're clear. You can't talk to that place or send a postcard once every 6 months and expect that they're going to have a return here. So we've talked a lot about health and fitness and things over the years, Matt. And I think any plan that you decide to take, any direction you decide to go, and I will lean into relationships return the highest long-term.
All the time. They're also the least expensive.
I would look at building a relationship the most least expensive. Is that what you said?
Yeah. That doesn't.
We know what you're talking about.
That doesn't. Yeah.
When I look at like a really, really healthy relationship business, and again, we're going to have Ted Bash on and we're going to have Jeff Smith on, which are both realtors up in the Seattle market. They have looking at that in similarity to working out at the gym. They have shown up every day. They've eaten correct. They have a workout plan, regiment that they go do. Is it perfect all the time? No. But they do show up to the gym and they do know the workout. And they do have the routine and they're really consistent with a lot of the right stuff. They don't deviate. They don't go down this path over here of a fad diet that just came in and they're like, well, maybe I should try that for a little bit because that might be fun. I'm going to leave this stuff behind. Maybe I'll go try this over here. I could go do this now. Maybe I'll try yoga. I've never done yoga before. Maybe I'll shift this way. They don't do that stuff. They're very, very, very consistent in their businesses when it comes to relationships. And they've got this incredibly solid platform and foundation that is like it is amazing. It is so strong. And that's where we got to look at it. And then we have these other people over here that are constantly trying this, trying that, trying this. Now we're going to try this over here. Now let's throw a couple ads up and we'll see no, that didn't get the response I want. Let's run over here and try this over here. And you sit here and you go, why are you running in circles and you're burning yourself out and you're not getting the results that you want? Well, you're just fad diet. Try another fad diet here right now. And that's where I go, like, relationships are like that person that you've watched that goes to the gym over and over and over again, and they show up, and they're strong. They're really strong. like you can see it's not just like I pump myself full of some, the right stuff and I got some big muscles bulging everywhere. Like they are at a core strong. And I want to encourage everybody out there, like you got to put the work in, you got to put the time in, you got to show up for these people and build these strong relationships. And whether you're Ryan Serhant, who's doing it his way, or you are, Ted Bash or Jeff Smith in their neighborhoods that are just putting in the time, putting in the relationship, building, growing these solid relationships, they're strong at a core when it comes to their business. They're not fake strong on the outside where, it's just all fluff.
Yeah. Yeah, man. So true. And I will say this for those of you who maybe you're in that 70%, you had a tough year, didn't do a deal for some reason. Or maybe you're in just over that and you've done 1, 2, or 3 deals and you really want to do more. You were saying about people switching from this to that. The most disappointing thing about that is when people do that, they don't learn from the thing that they did. Yep. Because, all right, you're switching around and you're like trying to find what works. But the problem is if you never analyze, even if you did that thing for a short period of time and didn't really give it enough time to play fully out, there is still something you could have learned from it versus that wasn't just, oh, this doesn't work, which is what most people say. This doesn't work. I'm done with it. Well, go and analyze it. Why didn't it work then? Let's ask that question so that you can then protect yourself against the next decision you make so that you can find what works for you. Because I know there's plenty. My dad asked me this sometime in the past 2 years, like with the inventory levels across the US, but there's 1.5, 1.6 million realtors. There's not enough listings for all the realtors out there. I'm like, not a problem, because most of the realtors ain't doing any business.
Yep.
And they don't want to do business. And that's okay. For those of you that want to do business that aren't doing any business, lean into yourself. You talked about health, Garrett. I think the biggest thing that anybody can do this year to see success is invest in yourself. And that's from a time and a money and in a mindset perspective, right? Yeah. Invest in yourself, invest in your learning, invest in your training, invest in your skill set, invest in your consistency so that you can, and anybody can make it in this business. What I love about real estate, and I love about all the kind of the parallel industries that are on real estate too, mortgage, insurance, like anybody can make it in those things. The key is being consistent and deploying value and focusing on building those relationships. And you're going to be successful. And don't worry about these numbers that come out because they aren't a reflection on you. You are the reflection on you.
Well, I'm going to give a shout out to one more person here just for fun, but like Blas Estrada. I've coached Blas Estrada. He's with the group in Fort Collins, Colorado for many years. And I've watched him with his videos that he's put out and the marketing that he's put out when it comes to social media. And it's funny, he is one of the ones when you talk about like stick with it and learn, Matt. Learn from what you're doing. You have the right intention up front. You know exactly what you're trying to do, which he's trying to build quality relationships, people to understand the value that he brings in. And if you watch his pathway of the videos that he's done over the last, let's say 5 years, they are so different from 5 years ago to what they are today. 5 years ago, they were kind of rickety and all over the place, and and they were funny, and they were him, and they were perfect at that moment in time. And it's funny, in this time period that he's done them now, he's putting out some right now that are so polished, they're so nice. Every time one pops up, I'm like, dude, look at you, man. And as somebody, because he looks so good, and his energy is so solid, he's so much more confident right now. And I think that that's what grows with time as you get in being consistent, as you get confident with what you're doing and people can see that you're confident and they can trust you because you're confident. And that's how relationships are built. That's how any solid foundation is built, is time, energy, being consistent, and you learn so much along the way. Just like we are, Matt, every single day. Every single time we put something out, we analyze it, we check it, and we go, what if we did this? What made the difference? And you just get better and better and better and more consistent. You got to be learning all the time. So
yeah, you do. Man, we threw a lot into this one. There was a lot to download out of this conversation here. And so, guys, the biggest thing that would mean the world to us if you guys could share this with somebody who you think would find value out of it. If you got value out of it, if you're still listening, I assume that you have. Share it with somebody else who you think would get some value out of it. If you know somebody who's really focusing on these numbers, maybe a little bit depressed because of it for some reason, share this with them, because there's hope for everybody if you focus on yourself. And we also just want to thank you guys for being a part of this Life at 10 Tenths journey that you guys have followed us on and that you'll continue to follow us on. And if you guys want to get a little bit closer to us and you haven't yet checked out our community, we have an awesome starter membership, which gets you more access to Garrett and myself. We got more videos in there, kind of some extras that come off the podcast. We got mindset training that happens every single week with these videos that we share, book insights, and we're even talking about adding some more stuff into that starter membership. And then of course we have our coaching, right? Which we're about to roll into here after we're done recording here, which happens every week. We do live coaching sessions, which is an opportunity to learn a new framework or a perspective on something, and also get your questions answered and just work directly with Garrett and myself, and then the other wonderful people that are there. And we bring guests on too, which is super cool. We have guests come in and share their expertise with all of y'all, because we don't know everything, as you guys all know, I'm sure. So we hope to see you. That you could go to lifeat10tenths.com, by the way, to check all those levels out. But Garrett, man, I appreciate you so much, brother, and appreciate everybody for tuning in, and looking forward to our next episode.
Thank you, everybody. We'll see you soon.